Good evening. I'm Jim Thornton, Chair of the BMA's Board of Trustees, and I would like to welcome you tonight for this celebration of Matisse and Vence, the Stations of the Cross. The Baltimore Museum of Art is extremely proud of its Matisse collection, and many in our community are quite familiar with this work. The fact that these drawings are among the least studied aspect of his career and have never been shown together in the United States make this exhibition a truly unique experience. We'd like to thank our co-organizers, the Musée Matisse Nice, as well as France and the French ambassador, Laurent Billy, for helping us to make this happen. The BMA's presentation is generously supported by Nancy Dorman and Stanley Mazeroff, the Pierre Antoine Matisse Foundation, the estate of Carolyn Lee Smith, and the audio guide is made possible with the support from the Lilly Endowment, Inc. I would also like to thank you, all of our council members, for your generous and sustained support. Would you please give all of our supporters a round of applause? It is truly now my pleasure to introduce the Executive Director, the Dorothy Wagner Wallace Executive Director, the leader of the largest museum in the state of Maryland, the person responsible for bringing the Amy Sherrill exhibition to Baltimore and to BMA in particular, and one of the finest executive directors in the country, Azma Naeem.
Good evening, Jim. Thank you for that very kind and embarrassing introduction. It's really a pleasure to be here with you all today. Welcome. Thank you for your enthusiasm. Thank you for coming to see this groundbreaking exhibition. It's truly a delight to see you all here. This exhibition is quite powerful, and I think you will say that you've seen nothing like it before. This is an exhibition that is celebrating the genius of Henri Matisse, one of the greatest painters and artists who have ever lived. It's also a partnership with Musée Matisse Nice. This exhibition is an incredible first-time collaboration with the Musée Matisse Nice, and I want to thank their extraordinary director, Amérique Jeudi, and the dedicated staff. Thank you for your generous collaboration. Amérique, I don't know if you would like to stand. Thank you. Thank you. To prepare for this exhibition, I had the pleasure, along with Katie Rothkopf, to visit Musée Matisse Nice, and sometimes this job is a good job. Thank you for hosting us. We are also grateful for the artworks you have lent us for this exhibition, including many from the artist's estate, as well as loans from the Chapel of the Dominican Sisters and many private collections. My thanks to all of the lenders. And I will say, as I shared with the ambassador, speaking with the Dominican Sisters who do not speak a word of English, and I had to bone up on my French before meeting with them, was quite an experience for Katie and me. They agreed to lend works that have never left France, so we did okay. I'd also like to take a moment to thank some of the many talented people here at the Baltimore Museum of Art who helped to make this exhibition in all of its glory. First and foremost, the guest curator, Yves Lambois. Yves Lambois is one of the most brilliant minds in art history, full stop. He also happens to have been my professor nearly 40 years ago when I was an undergraduate at Johns Hopkins. Yves Alain was a mentor to me. He's really the reason that I am here today. I would not have gone into art history without his incredible mind, and I also babysat his sons. Where are his sons? Are you Benjamin? Alexandre? Oh my goodness. So my French was extraordinarily well when I was in college, but all I really had to say was oui or no. So it's nice to see you as a fully grown man. This is quite a reunion. I also have to thank Katie Rothkopf, the Anne and Ben Cohn director of the Ruth R. Martyr Center for Matisse Studies. Katie, I know you're going to be on stage very soon, but if you could just also stand, thank you. And curatorial research associate fellow, wonderfully, extraordinarily talented Laura Albans. Where are you, Laura? And then I have a whole list of names, if you don't mind holding your applause. I will go through them, but they all deserve to be named in this space tonight. Our Chief Operating Officer, Chris Dietz, our Chief Curator, Kevin Tervala, the Eddie C. and C. Sylvia Brown Chief Curator, our exhibition team, Sarah Hammond, David Verhoeven, the installation team leader, the exhibition designer. The exhibition design, I guarantee you will walk away saying, that is one of the finest exhibition designs I've seen in a long time, David Zimmerman. Education and interpretation led by the one and only Elizabeth Callahan, with incredible kudos to interpretation manager Brittany Strupp. Marketing and communications led by Katie Kreider. Advancement led by Anna Lincoln Whitehurst. And security led by Mike Beccabretti. Let's give them all a round of applause. Now, I'd like to give a special welcome to our guests, our distinguished guests this evening, French Ambassador Laurent Billy, Linda Fanois, the Cultural Attaché and Director of Villa Albertine for Washington, D.C., and Caroline Monvoisin, the Consul General. Welcome. We're truly honored to have you. Bienvenue au Baltimore Museum of Art. Nous sommes ravis de célébrer le génie extraordinaire et l'impact durable d'Henri Matisse avec vous. J'espère que cela marque le début de nouvelles collaborations entre le musée et l'ambassade de France et de la Villa Albertine. Okay. I may have been practicing all day with our dog. I just said welcome to the Baltimore Museum of Art. We are thrilled to celebrate this extraordinary genius and lasting impact of Henri Matisse. I hope this marks the beginning of a new collaboration between the museum, the French Embassy, and Villa Albertine. Now I'd like to say a few words about the exhibition. The Chapel of the Rosary in Vence, in the hills above Nice, is an architectural masterpiece and one of the highlights of Matisse's late career. Matisse designed every detail, and I don't know how many of you have been there, but if you haven't, you must go. He even designed the candlesticks. Every aspect of the Vence Chapel has been touched by Matisse's beautiful and exquisite taste. The priest's vestments, the altar, the stained glass, everything, even the 3 ceramic murals were designed by Matisse. The last mural is the Stations of the Cross. It's unlike anything else Matisse created. It has a Christian narrative and a rough style, yet it is also completely his. According to Yves Alain, my former professor, Matisse did more drawings for this work than any other in his entire career. And until now, it was his least studied work. This revelatory exhibition shows us Matisse's journey to realize this work alongside Christ's journey to the Calvary, a profoundly moving experience that you will hear more about from Yves Alain and KT. But before that, it is a true delight to to welcome the Ambassador, His Excellency, Ambassador Laurent Billy. Welcome.
Well, Board Chair, dear Jim, dear Asma, good evening, everyone. It's really an honor to be here with you this evening at the Baltimore Museum of Art and for the preview of this nice exhibition. And first of all, I'd like to commend everyone behind this exhibition on the quality of your research. Thanks to your hard work, the next generation of curators and art historians have valuable new ground upon which to build their own research. The Baltimore Museum of Art has a unique role to play in these ongoing exchanges, and suffice it to say that your Matisse collection is in very good company. The BMA's French modern art collection boasts nearly 3,000 pieces ranging from Cézanne to Degas, Renoir, Monet. And each time that I see that, I'm so pleased that our Impressionists were workaholic. Currently, you have a free Matisse exhibition in conversation that complement one another beautifully. Matisse and Martinique, Portraits and Poetry, Matisse in Vence, The Station of the Cross, and Matisse and Fratino. One of them explores travel and transatlantic influences, whereas the other focuses on powerful, paired dawn lines and spirituality, and as well as the dialogue between Fratino and Matisse. Asma, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for all that you have done to highlight French artwork and archives. We are grateful to have you on the jury for Villa Albertine's artist residencies. And I also like to thank Senior Curator Katie Rotkoff for her ongoing collaboration on Villa Albertine's project and event. Thank you. Last but not least, Yves-Alain Bois and Émeric Jeudi, thank you for joining us this evening. Your presence speaks volumes about the excellent cooperation between France and the US in this field. So have a wonderful evening and enjoy the exhibition. Excellente soirée à tous.
Now I'd like to invite our guest curator, Yves-Alain Bois and Katie Rothkopf, to the stage to tell us more about their work on this wonderful exhibition.
Can you hear me? Oh, awesome.
Me?
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming this evening to celebrate this wonderful exhibition. I've had the great pleasure of working with Yves-Alain on this project for the last 2 or 3 years? Year? I don't know, something like that. And so we're going to just have a conversation. I'm going to ask him a lot of questions. I'm going to try to wrangle him to tell us everything that he knows about Matisse in a short period of time, because I know you're all eager to see the show. But I think this is an opportunity to hear from Yves-Alain about why he was interested in the project, where it came from, and really why it's so unique in Matisse's career. First of all, let's talk about why Matisse started to work on the chapel project. How did it come together?
Well, the stars were well aligned. Someone who had been his nurse and whom he used as a model for 3 or 4 paintings. We connected with him around that time, and she had become a nun, a Dominican in training, right? And she brought him a little design, sketch that she had made for a stained glass window. At that time, the nuns in Vence had a kind of like lousy garage that they were using at the chapels. She wanted to make it nicer, and Matisse looked at this really rather ridiculous little sketch and said, "Okay, I think we could do better." But that was all. Then, a few months later, a young Dominican brother was visiting the nuns in Vence, and he wanted to meet. He learned that Matisse was basically living around the block, on the other side of the street, really. And he asked if you could meet him, and the Mother Superior of the nuns said, "Yeah, you could just say that you are an architect," which is not exactly true. But he brought to Matisse little drawings of a chapel that he had seen in Switzerland and whatever. Matisse, oh, that's interesting, but that was all. 5 days later, they met, and Matisse was already designing a chapel. It's just a complete fascination that Matisse got almost immediately. And one of the main reasons was that he had been wanting to have an architectural commission forever. After he made the Dance mural for Barnes, at the Barnes Foundation, he thought he would have plenty of commissions. He got nothing, and he especially didn't get anything for the big international fair in 1937, where a lot of artists were invited by the French government and to make frescoes and everything, including one of the artists that he despised because he thought he was a bad plagiarist, which was Dufy. So he was really he really wanted to do something on architecturally, and then suddenly it was, and then he was completely obsessed with it for 3 years.
Was he religious?
He was not exactly religious. In fact, when he was young, he was anti-religious. But he was not a believer of basically. He had a kind of vague pantheism like that, celebrating the creation and life and whatever, but not really. He was not, certainly not a Christian in the conventional sense. In fact, right away, that's what the priests themselves say. He's not a Christian. but he got very interested. He wanted to, especially when he chose to, because that's him who chose it, to the theme of the Station of the Cross. He really wanted to understand and to empathize, actually, because that's the way, a kind of empathy is the way he always drew with his model. So he had to empathize with the agony of Christ. That's it's a way to say it. And he was very interested in. He didn't know anything really of the Bible. He had to learn, and it's also one of the reasons there are so many drawings. He also didn't know anything really about the Christian imagery. So he had to, look at all these art books and things like that, and learn things. So you can see that he looks at Mantegna. He looks at plenty of other Mantegna a lot for a strange reason, but also Rubens, which isn't exactly Italian Renaissance. But he looked at a lot of things and to draw his inspiration to get going.
Right. I just wanted to show a photo of the nun herself, Sister Jacques Marie.
She has a very fantastic story. Well, that's not her exactly, but we have a great book where the various people helping Matisse, the Dominicans, wrote. One of the Dominicans wrote minutes of every. Like if he was a clerk in court, like every conversation he had with Matisse for 3 years. So we have almost day to day what happened. And one day, there were a lot of there was a Mother Superior. There was many people involved in this chapel, as it was not yet decided what was really going to happen. And Matisse said during this conversation with all these people, "Oh, but I'm doing that for myself. It's very selfish. I'm doing this chapel for myself." And Sir Jacques Marie said, "But I thought you said you do it for the love of God." And he said, "Oui, mais Dieu, c'est moi."
He did not have a confidence problem. We talked a little bit, Asma mentioned some of the things that Matisse designed for the chapel. I just love this slide with some of the most beautiful things that you can see if you go there, particularly the confessional door on the right.
The masterpiece. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about his decision to design everything. Was there a lot written about? Was there a lot of conversation with Sister Jacques Marie or the priests about what he was going to do, or he just did it?
No, he just did it. It was his. It has to be a total artwork where everything would be by him. There would be nothing that he doesn't. And he agonized about everything. He would redo things if it was not exactly. There was this huge, almost a big fight. He almost kicked out the poor brother Resiguet because of the tiles of of the roof, the color of the tile of the roof. He had to change. It was wrong. He was totally obsessed, and there was never any decision that it would be otherwise. There was his stuff, and he helped a lot in almost practically finance it himself. I mean, he did a lot for the financing of this chapel. So he felt, that's my work.
It's mine. I get to do what I want.
Exactly.
We just want to talk a little bit about the Stations of the Cross in general.
Yeah.
And for those who may not be as familiar, what are they?
So it's a ritual, really, that started very early on, basically at the time of the Crusade. But there was a pilgrimage in Jerusalem called the Villa Dolorosa, which started at a place where Jesus was condemned to death by Pilate. Is that the way you pronounce it? Mm-hmm. And ended at where the crucifixion and the entombment. And they were on the villa in Jerusalem. There were there were 7 stops at first when it started. And they got to more little stories and more chapels. And the Stations of the Cross started as a kind of for people who didn't have the money or the time or whatever to go to Jerusalem. There was this brilliant theologian who started this idea of making a kind of miniature, Via Dolorosa in various churches. It took a while to get finally settled with its 14 stations. At first, the Pope, only the Franciscans were in charge because they were in charge in Jerusalem, and then it became the Dominican, and then it became the Jesuit, and then it became everyone. But it took a while to become. So it's a kind of mini pilgrimage. You kind of imitate small miniature of what is in Jerusalem. And it can be in a church, it can be around a church, it can be, there are different ways to do it. In Italy, there are the Monti Sacri, which are actually big imitations with little chapels on a mountain and on a hill, on a mountain. There are several of them like that. So, the Station of the Cross can be tiny little thing in a small chapel, or, can be
a huge thing. This exhibition focuses on a moment late in Matisse's life, which feels both deeply personal and experimental. What first drew you to the idea of wanting to do this exhibition?
Well, first of all, I'd seen many times the chapel when I was young, and I was always very struck by this mural, which is so different from anything that Matisse did. There's no curves. There's no, there's nothing that seems joyful. It's, all the cliches of Matisse doesn't work. So, so I was surprised. And then when I found out that there was all these drawings that we knew not very well, not shown or very rarely, I wanted to study it more. I was totally mesmerized by this all. It's really something very unique in not the other, everything else in the chapel, the stained glass window, the 2 other murals, those are, I would say, typically Matisse, typically Matisseian. This is not. I mean, when you show that to someone who knows modern art and say it's a Matisse, if they have not seen it before, it's hard to believe, frankly. So that was what, and nothing had been written on it, basically. So I thought, it needs to be studied.
Right.
And we have all these drawings. So.
And with all these amazing drawings from the very beginning, we have a slide up there with a few of the sort of early ideas. Did Matisse always intend for there to be a Stations of the Cross in the chapel, from what you've gathered?
Yes, it's extraordinary. It's Brother Resiguier, this guy who took all the minutes, insists that almost the second meeting, which is 5 days after the first meeting, as I said, he already says he wants to do a Station of the Cross. And Brother Resiguier said, it's him who insisted. It's really strange, because he could, being Matisse, he could have done, I don't know, the Paradise, That would have been like more
joyful and decorative.
Would have been more, and no, he himself did that. Chose this topic for which he was the least prepared. No, because he can't represent violence. Every time he tries, it's really not very convincing. He can't tell stories. Every time he tries, it's a catastrophe. Nobody can understand what the people are doing. When there are multiple figures, no one understands the relationship between them. He doesn't like anything sequential. For him, painting or work of art must be seen at a glance. Here, you have to go from point A to point B to C. It's completely against his own aesthetic, and he's very clear about that right from the very beginning. So it's strange, that he chose a topic that will ask him to do so many things he doesn't want to do, like telling a story. He's against it. In principle, he's against that. So, but that's what he has to do.
Right, of course. He also explores all sorts of different media in leading up to the final station.
Yeah.
Charcoal, graphite, the blue pencil that we just saw, pen, India ink and brush. Is there anything that you've learned about why he felt he needed to use all of those different avenues to get to what we see at the end?
No, what I understood better is his way of empathizing with the model that he has, what he has to represent. And I suppose that shifting media is one way for it to become more automatic. He has this idea that he has to study a model, and the model can be, fruits. I mean, he has to study the model completely so that he possesses it in his mind, so that he can draw it eyes closed. And I suppose that having all these different instruments of drawing has to do also with fabricating this muscle memory, which he called his automatic drawing. It's not in the same sense of the word automatic at for surrealists, but he wanted to achieve this kind of complete, he says himself when he does some of his drawing, he has to be in a state of trance. And I think that it's a bit related to that, to fabricate this internalization, and no matter what instrument he has, it would be automatically perfect.
Right. Well, you also mentioned earlier about his love of artists of the past and helping him. And I gather he was not in terrific physical shape.
No, he couldn't.
And traveling to churches to check out other examples of Stations of the Cross was not something that was possible.
No, not at this time. But he remembered very fondly his discovery of the Italian Renaissance art when he went to see. He stayed in Florence at the guest of Leo Stein, the brother of Gertrude Stein,
right,
and friend of Cohen probably.
Taught them all about art.
Yeah. So he stayed in Florence for about a month and a half, touring a lot of different places in Italy with Leo Stein, and it was some of the works that he saw then were very important for this work on the Station of the Cross, but also specifically one fresco by Mantegna, for which he made at least 10 drawings on the first station. You'll see that and it's interesting because it's a fresco that's not at all about Christ. It's a martyrdom of St. James, so it didn't matter to Matisse. I use that for Christ, but even if it's completely unrelated. It was not the story itself. The detail of the story didn't matter to him, but he wanted to understand so what he liked in this fresco is that it gives an impression. It's an image of power, and he was struck by it. Had been struck by it a very long time earlier. When he went to see that trip, it's 1907. So, and he had a very good memory. Of course, he had books. Of course, it's drawn so specifically from it that he had a book for sure. At the time, this fresco was almost half destroyed by the Allied bombing in Padova. But he needed to make to have a kind of catalogue of images to be able to start. And you can see, it's interesting in the exhibition, you can see that for certain stations, he hesitated. Like there's one particular, that's the 13th station, for example. He has really two models, it's Mantegna and Rubens. And he's like, Mantegna, Rubens, Mantegna, Rubens. Yeah.
Not bad examples to draw from.
No.
I mean, one of the things I love about Matisse, and particularly at the work we do here, we look to both contemporary artists that look back to Matisse, but I always love thinking about who he's looking back to, and how their examples still run so importantly and so deeply for him.
speaking about it, you know, the Matisse, when he was a student, made copies. Like every student in the Beaux-Arts had to make copy. In fact, the French government would, if they liked the copy, they would buy it for very little money and send it to provincial museums. Matisse made plenty of copies, not a single one ever sold. But there's one religious work that he copied. That's the only one. In fact, there's another one that we discovered later, but that's, I think it's not from the same period. It's a Dead Christ by Philippe de Champaigne.
Guess what?
Which yeah.
I have it.
and I think he was thinking about that when he made the last drawing of the show, which is one of my favorite,
Yes.
which is this one.
Yes.
I mean, you know, it's a very rare painting, even in France, the Champagne painting. So Matisse zeroed on something really kind of unique in the kind of catalogue of you know, paintings in the Louvre. And I think he remembered it when he made this drawing, which is, you know, the last drawing and showing a very dead Christ.
He's definitely very dead.
Like
And I mean, I sort of jumped ahead a bit, but I think that's fine. Is this, you know, I think in our working together on the show, you've always said that this is the work that you find perhaps the most moving.
It is, yeah.
And wanted very much for it to be the last thing that we saw as
Yeah.
people were leaving. You know, how do you, since he wasn't really religious, how do you sort of see his spirituality coming out in some of the works in the show?
I think that by speaking with the Dominicans and getting basically a religious education, even though I don't think he really became a Catholic believer. He would say things to the Dominicans that could sound like that, but you know, all his friends know that all the testimony just say no. He was also a little. You know, how would you say? He wanted to convince. He was playing a little the game.
Oh yes.
Yeah, but
he was trying to
charm
the priest to make sure he got to do the project the way he wanted.
Exactly.
Just the way he charmed Etta and Clarabelle Cohn,
no,
by the way.
that was it. But I do think that he understood because of his conception of working and of drawing and painting after drawing. He understood that he had to completely empathize with the suffering of Christ. So, and he got a theological explanation from the Dominicans about the change that happened around the Quattrocento and about going from the Byzantine model of Christ in majesty to the Christ that we know in the Catholic faith and of the suffering Christ, the Christ that accepts. He got that. He understood, and you can see gradually in what he said when he tells the priest, since we have all these minutes, you can see that gradually what they tell him theologically kind of seeps back into the way he thinks about. Yeah, that's quite interesting. You have him changing his mind about the way Christ just moves, he thinks more about, and he says, he had the dialogue with a priest. Say, here is really suffering, or here is really accepting, or something, things like that, which is something he acquires while discussing for, and he has about two years and a half of discussion with these people.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. We also want to talk a little bit about his use of models and how did that help him with the mural and what a weird thing to want to sign up to do, or what a wonderful thing to want to sign up to do, to pose as Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, there was he used two models, but one of them just he didn't like the first one. I can't remember his name, but so the other one that he really used from beginning to end was a young sculptor, an artist, and who was religious. Matisse had a cross in his studio, a big wooden cross.
Oh God!
And this guy was like, there are drawings where he's carrying the cross. The model was carrying the cross, and he had to be exactly the way, So when he posed for the crucifixion, he was in loincloth, designed by Matisse. He insists on that. And carrying having suspended from the cross. And in fact, this model says that one day, without Matisse knowing, he would kick out the stool on which he was perched and was suspended. And one day Matisse found it. Why are you doing that? And the guy said, well, it's my religious side.
Wow. And which, I think I've jumped ahead a little bit, but we wanted to talk a bit about your favorite works in the show. We want things for people to look for when they go in. Which are the things that you think are the most special, aside from works that really are some of the greatest works that he ever made, whether for this project or for anything?
Well, I think that those two drawings are spectacular, that's for sure. And I like very much this is a one sketch that he made, the one test that he made for the ceramic. We don't have any other, he might have done others. But when you look at the way it's, when you go very closely and you look at the way it's painted, it looks like a de Kooning or an abstract expressionist artist. The brushwork is so free; it's extraordinary, and it makes it better to understand why he didn't want to over-design the thing. He wanted to keep it fresh. So once he knew the way he was going to do, that was it. He didn't need to continue to go back. In fact, he was very frustrated because he was ready to paint with enamel on the black tiles. He was ready to do that in April 1949, and he had to wait until basically January 50 to have like 8 months or something like that, to 9 months, to be able to paint. I mean, he was completely impatient, but he didn't need to study anymore. It was he continued to draw a little bit, and the Dominican said, "I thought you were finished." Yeah, I'm finished, but I don't want to lose contact. Right. Which is exactly the way Pollock would have spoken, which is quite amazing. Yeah.
And the specificity of the tile took a long time. You were telling us that he wanted them all to be rectangle and not square.
No, he wanted them rectangle and not square. And that's one of the reasons they cracked so much.
Right.
Because they cracked when they became cold, and it's just I'm completely incapable of explaining why, but apparently it's much more even. The warm and cold, the temperature is much more even, decreasing evenly in a square rather than a rectangle.
Gotcha.
I have no idea. That's what they do. That's in the discussions with, and people say, no, you should make them square. And no, I want them rectangular. I don't know exactly why he didn't want the square. Especially bizarre because in his own studio before, as we have several photos with the pink nude, which is there. Right. He had a square, square tile.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
But not.
And it's just amazing how for this is in the exhibition. This is a sample that Matisse made while working on the final tile mural, and how much it looks exactly like the final that he did. This idea of the automatic drawing, the fact that he knew exactly what he wanted to do, and then did it standing on a sort of scaffold.
Oh, yeah, it was unbelievable the way this poor Matisse had to go on this completely, ramshackle. I mean, the way the scaffolding that he had to go on, I mean, I'm just surprised that they didn't find something more stable. But he also wanted to test the color of the white. That's why when you see that, you notice that all the white, there are like 3 or 4 different whites in the background there.
And I guess another question is, how do you think that designing this chapel affected Matisse? He finished it in 1951, 3 years before he died. Did he consider it his greatest achievement? Or as you've told me sometimes, that every time he said everything was his greatest achievement when he finished it?
Well, I think all artists are like that. Yeah. I mean, more or less. I mean, he considered it to be his lifetime achievement. I don't agree, but I think that the painting that he made just before is his greatest achievement.
Well, his time in Vence was so important and changed. I mean, it's interesting how many people think about the Vence paintings, the Vence chapel, the cutouts. I mean, everything. There's so many parts of his career that the general public is more familiar with at the very end. Yeah. That at a time when he was over 80. not in good physical shape. It's just a really remarkable thing.
No, it is, and you know, he was bedridden most of the time, doing all this time of preparing the chapel, which is quite, you know, when you think about it. I mean, a lot of this stuff was done while he was in bed. He would draw with his big stick from his bed on the wall of his studio. I mean, it's just crazy.
He had a studio that was the same size as the chapel and as the for the mural, and so he had life-size drawings up, and he was working on them over and over and over again. It was really an extraordinary thing. You know, now for you, after having spent so much time with these works, and you know, you've been studying with Matisse for more than 50 years.
No.
Even though you were very, very young, and remarkably, you started in the womb, obviously. How has your understanding of the French artist changed in this project, or you know, as time has gone on? What have you learned more about him?
I understood better his idea of drawing, this temporality of studying completely, so that something comes into your head and you master it. And I understood that better with this, looking at this project in detail. That's true. That I can say. But it's better. It's not different.
It's better. It's not different.
I understood better. I did not understand differently.
Well, and it's rare to have so many drawings for one particular project. It's most he ever made, as Esma said earlier. And you can really trace, the beginning to the end in many of them. I mean, for some of them, we know that the first station and the 12th station have the most drawings. And if he figured it out, he just didn't continue making them just for fun, and he didn't make them in order either, right?
No, he started the first station. He started first, but after that he was, why do I don't have to do second, third. I can do whatever I want. So he jumped from one station to the next, freely. And today I did three, Veronica's veil, and I will do, deposition, and tomorrow I worked on, it went like that.
Right.
It went like that. He realized it was important for him to work on all of them at the same time a little bit, to build this thing, this image, mental image that he needed to have to be able to work with the enamel on the tiles. That was this strange process. It's very internalized.
And not routinized at all, but sort of as he felt it, Well, this has been a real pleasure. I think we're unless you have anything else, is there anything you'd like to say about working here, or why you thought this would be a good venue for this show?
Yes. Well, first of all, it was a museum where I came for 8 years of my life when I taught at Hopkins. So I came very often to this museum with my students, it has a Matisse Center, which you direct, so I thought it would be perfect as a repository of that show.
Well, we're so glad you did. We're so glad about Esma's excellent babysitting. It's all come full circle, and this has been such a pleasure, and I hope everyone, we'll break now. I think they'll probably, not everyone can go in right away. The show, has some space limitations, so maybe some folks can go have a drink, and then others can go into the exhibition, and hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as we have done. We've had such a good time doing the show with you, Yves Alain, and thank you so much for your friendship and your wonderful collegiality. And I hope you all enjoy the exhibition, and thank you so much for your support.
I didn't have the time to thank you.